Hello there. In this video lesson we're going to show you how you can create a simple pendant, a 35mm circular pendant in this example, and how you can actually place three heart objects in the center of it. So if you start Fluid Designer, first thing to do is to look for the Pendants folder. And there are a range of different sizes here, 10mm, 15, 20. We're going to use the 35mm one. Now there are some different shapes, pentagonal, square, octagonal. We're just going to stick to using the round one. So if we just drag and drop this object onto the workspace, and if I just switch on the screencast keys, you can see my key presses down here. Now what have we got here? Well, we've got a default pendant here which is 35mm internal diameter, and it's got this connector on it. So essentially what we can do is just place objects on the inside of this pendant to create a new one of our own design. So if I go to View and Top View, now around the screen you can see various shapes, and these shapes, if you just click on them and just drag them into the center there, what you can do, you can actually play around with these objects and build up a design in the that will appear in the pendant. So if I just zoom in on that, I'm just zooming in by scrolling the center mouse button, and I'll just select one more. Okay, so I've created a very simple design there. Now, as you can see, these objects, which are in fact curves, this is a NURBS curve. This is actually a NURBS curve as well, but it's been squared off. And these are NURBS paths. These all can be created from the Add menu, Add and Curve. So they're these objects here. And they've been sized for you to actually fit inside this pendant. And clearly, for 3D printing purposes, you do need objects that will overlap with the pendant itself to end up with a solid object. So you do need to touch the side of the pendant. Now once you're happy with the choice of your design choice, so here I've got a square, a circle, and then two lines. Then if you hold down the Shift key and click on them all to select them all, you can then go to Tools, Object Tools, and join them. Now it's very important that when you join these to the actual pendant itself, you select the pendant last. If you highlight the pendant and then hold down the Shift key and highlight the curve and then join them together, the thickness of the pendant disappears. Now it can be put back quite easily just by going over here, so it's, you know, it's not a disaster. But if I just do Control Z and Control Z and undo those, really the best way to actually do this is to highlight the curve that you're going to join to the pendant and highlight the solid pendant object last, because what will happen is the properties of the pendant will be adopted by the curve here. Whatever object you select last, all the other objects will take on that same shape and size, and that's what we really want to do. So if I now go to Tools, Object Tools, and Join, you'll see the thickness is applied to the center of the pendant there. Okay. Now if I just do Control Z and Control Z and undo all of that, just undo, I just keep pressing Control Z until I undo everything. So I'm just returning to the basic pendant now. So I've undone everything just by repeatedly pressing Control Z. You can also go to Edit and Undo, it does the same thing. Now in this example, in this video, I want to actually create this pendant with the hearts. So these objects around the pendant can actually be modified slightly. You don't have to keep the circles as circles, you don't have to keep the lines as lines. What do I mean by that? Well, if I select a circle there, and if I just drag it into the middle of the screen, this circle is in fact a curve. It's a NURBS curve. And we can edit a NURBS curve by pressing the tab key on the keyboard. And when we zoom in, what we find is that there are some control points around the object, around this NURBS circle, and there are also some additional control points out in the corners there. And we can move all of those control points. Now I want to create a heart shape, so if I pull that, adjust that y-axis there, the green is the y-axis. If I adjust that upwards, and then if I select this above this other control point and adjust that, you can see that I can get a heart shape. Now I know it's upside down, but my pendant is upside down. So there's a heart shape. And if I press the A key on the keyboard, that will deselect any control points that I've got highlighted. If I press A again, it will highlight all the control points. Now I want to deselect them all, and I want to come out of edit mode, and we come out of edit mode by pressing the tab key on the keyboard. So it's tab key to go into edit mode, adjust the points that you want to adjust and create a new shape, and then tab key to come out. Now at this stage it's probably best if you just adjust the X and the Y control points. If you adjust the Z control point, you're going to pull the object above the pendant, and you really want to keep it flat inside the pendant. So stick to just moving the X and the Y at this stage. Now that's one copy of a heart shape. What I can do also is I can reposition it. Now remember, this has got to touch the pendant itself if we're going to get a 3D printable object. So I'm just going to adjust it and position it there so that it's just overlapping. And if I want to make a second copy of this, rather than create another one, I mean I could do it at a different size just by moving a circle into the middle here. What I can also do is I can create a duplicate of this object. So if I go to Tools, Object, Tools, and duplicate the object, and then if I just move the mouse, you can see where my second copy is, and I'll just position it there again. So, well, it's just it's not quite touching there, but when the thickness is applied, it will overlap. So that's probably okay. And again, if I do Tools, Object, Tools, and duplicate, and if I just move the mouse, I'm just moving the mouse gently around. I haven't quite got it now. Now you can see what I've done there, because I wasn't working with the because I wasn't actually working in top view. I've actually adjusted them in the Z direction. That's the blue direction. Now that's not going to be any good for 3D printing. So what I really need to do is, if I go to View and Front View, I need to move this upwards there so that it's in line with the red line there. That's the X-axis. And this other one, the first one that I positioned, sorry, the second one that I positioned, the first one that I duplicated, if I go to View and Front, if I just move that up as well, it's now in line with the X-axis. In other words, it's centered about the object there. So what I really should have done when I was duplicating these is I should have been in top mode instead of in that angular mode. If you do it in top mode, it will stay flat and you won't adjust it in the Z direction. Now I still need to get this repositioned here so it overlaps a bit, so I'll just move it down. Oops, that's the wrong one. Select this particular heart. If I just move it down one, you can see it's just overlapping there. So I've got just touching there, and it's touching at the top. So that should be okay now. And they're positioned right as well. They're flat with the grid. They're in the middle of my existing object. So if I hold down the Shift key now on the keyboard and select the second and then the third heart, and go to Tools, Object, Tools, and join those three together. I'm now going to add them, join them together with the pendant itself, and when I do that, the thickness of the pendant will be applied to these three hearts as well. So if I hold down the Shift key and highlight the pendant, go to Tools, Object, Tools, and join them together, you can see that there's my three-heart pendant. Now if I wanted to change the thickness of this, I can do so by going to the Properties panel over here, and I can click on this icon, which is already in fact selected. This is the curve data information, and we've got this thing called the Bevel Object, and you notice it says cross section here, 1 by 2, 1 millimeter by 2. What that means is this thickness is 1, that height is 2. So if I change that to 1 by 3, you can see I get a thicker pendant, and it's applied to all of the object. So you can change this. You can make it quite thin, 1 by 1. The default one was 1 by 2, or you could thicken it up and make it 1 by 3. Okay, so that's how you can create a couple of different pendants in Fluid Designer for 3D printing, and how you can actually modify some of these objects which are placed around the default pendant. Now in Fluid Designer we always say don't go to File and Save As. Fluid Designer creates Blender files. Blender files are not 3D printable. So once you've actually got your pendant created, designed, what you need to do is to go to File and Export. Don't go to File and Save As, go to File and Export, and we recommend using the wavefront object format. And if we go to the desktop, and if I just replace that, so it's a 35mm pendant with 3 parts, and that will be saved as an OBJ, an object file. So we export the OBJ file. Now that in itself may 3D print, but it also may not, and what we always recommend you do is you run the OBJ file through a program called Netfab Basic to make any necessary corrections and repairs, and to generate what is essentially the final 3D printable file. Okay, so that's creating a pendant in Fluid Designer for 3D printing. Thank you.